What if your next great care hire never makes it past the CV screen? And what if an AI, not a human, could be the one to give them a fairer shot? In today's episode, we dive into bias, bots, and the bold future of recruitment in care. I'm David Mance, and my guest today is Elan James Weedon, or EJ to his friends, co-founder of Team Lily, which is an AI platform that screens candidates, prioritizes top talent, and empowers your HR team to do the things they do best. EJ, great to have you on the pod.
Thank you very much.
Now, I feel like I say this with every single guest, but it really is especially true with you in that everyone that seems to come on here has a really interesting backstory, how they ended up in the business, in the sector. And yours takes a beating in the fact that you're on the West End and cannot be beaten, in my mind, in the fact that you're in The Play That Goes Wrong.
Yeah. So right, my background. I spent 10 years as a professional actor, mostly theatre. Absolutely loved that job. I learnt so much, obviously, about storytelling, but also about empathy and putting yourselves in other people's shoes. And also body language, actually, a lot about body language, which my wife finds really frustrating because I'll be like, you're not telling me what you think you're telling me.
Okay. Yeah, I can
But
see that would drive me nuts.
the other thing I took from that is I actually then became really interested in behavioral science and why people make choices they make. But what led me to social care is actually more specifically what led me to being quite passionate about recruitment in social care is part of being an actor is spending time looking for work and loads of time looking for work, lots of auditions, lots of never hearing back, etc. And then outside of that, it's like actually just looking for jobs to keep you afloat, whether you're a coffee shop or you're a waiter or something. And so my experience as a candidate, I'd say, is quite extensive. So I've got a thing about great candidate experience and how to make the most of that time you spend when you're applying for jobs or when you're interviewing. How I landed in social care was because I was looking for a worthwhile problem to solve with AI. And we will go into this a bit more, but in a nutshell, social care is a really worthwhile place to be solving problems for. And when it came to recruitment, I was like, oh, I've never interviewed for care. I've never recruited for care, but I really get this candidate experience thing and this never hearing back and overwhelmed with that stuff. That's why I care about social care recruitment, I'd say.
Yeah, and I guess you must have, because now a big part of your job is like sales, isn't it? Like you're telling people about your product. And I guess another fact of your previous experiences, you must be good at dealing with not hearing back from people, rejection on that side, and being a bit thick-skinned and not taking it too personally.
Yeah, although it's an interesting thing with acting. You learn to be thick-skinned, but at the same time, the best opportunities come when you really pour your heart into it. I think there's a trade-off between how thick-skinned you can be and how much you have to care in order to deliver a great product or sell a great product, whether you're selling yourself as a character or you're selling a software solution.
Yeah, I like that. So you've got to make yourself vulnerable to do it well.
I think so.
Yeah. So tell me a bit, about the story then. So were you immediately, okay, we're going to focus on call screening because that's the first and biggest blocker for good, fast care recruitment?
So, well, it depends how far you want to go back. Do you want to go back as far as recruitment or what we were doing before that and how we found recruitment?
Yeah, no, all the way back. Okay.
My co-founders happen to be my cousins, and they happen to have quite an extensive background in tech and tech entrepreneurship. So we're not all actors, luckily. Otherwise, we'd be terrible. But we started by looking at retention in social care. And our first theory was if you can keep people mentally fit and physically fit, do they have a better time at work? And so what we were doing was we were building chatbots that communicated with care staff on WhatsApp, and we were trying to get people exercising or getting people to reflect on their day. And then we started to build in like policy and answering policy questions by using the company's policies, almost like the AI's brain. And as our North Star was retention, everybody we spoke to, the other side of that coin, they'd always mention recruitment. And for a long time, we heard it and went, yeah, but if you solve retention, obviously you don't have to worry about recruitment. Until eventually I spoke to Veronica Anthony David at Avanti Care. And she gave me the time on a call and she was like, do you know what? We've been discussing AI. We've been having some chats with some big suppliers about what should be built. And retention is up there, but recruitment is number one. And I was like, it's hard for anyone to see retention when they have to plug that gap in recruitment. So we then thought, okay, we've built out these intelligent WhatsApp workflows or conversation flows that are related to onboarding. Should we just move that forward to actually the application of a candidate? And we built out something I quite liked, and it was like scenario based, and you were getting images of a resident, an AI generated image of a resident, and a question about what would you do in this situation. I thought it was really cool. But there was also something in it which was, okay, over WhatsApp, people filter when they type. They always filter their messages when they type. But when I was speaking to the team at Avanti Care, they said, do you know what? It's always really frustrating because people will just click through what they think will get them through to the next stage. And it's only when I get them on the phone that I realize, they don't have a driving license, or they actually do require sponsorship, but they didn't interpret the question properly. Or I can't get them on the phone because maybe they weren't really looking for a job, but they were applying for one. And that's when I remember I said, so you find out this information on the phone, but never in the application stage? And like, no. And I was like, what is it about speaking to somebody that gets people to tell the truth, or gets them to be more open, or at least to add the detail or the nuance involved that actually gives you the answer you're looking for? So that's what led us to voice screening with AI. We realized there was just such an issue with screening in social care recruitment. So many candidates get through that shouldn't do because the gates in place aren't actually doing their job. And then you start to find out really interesting things and really useful information.
I think voice AI is probably the thing that, and I think unless people hear a demo of your products, which we could actually do, I hadn't actually thought about that, but it's like voice AI is the most mind-blowing thing, I think, for folks that haven't seen it and experienced it, because it is so good. It must be quite fun to actually demonstrate it to your clients.
Do you know what? It's always the best times are when the client is skeptical, but they've been told they should look into AI. And what they're expecting is, my memory is always when I was a kid and I'd phone up to book a cinema ticket and you'd say the name of the film and it would always get it wrong. You're like, you've got 10 films to choose from. Like, how wrong can this go? And you'd always get a wooden response, and it never felt helpful. And it's been similar to website chatbots of old. And then you have a conversation with a voice AI and a large language model, and the amount of context and useful information you can get and listening that you get. And that's the thing, is when a client's, it really listened. And they go, do you know what? I wanted to trip Lily up and I wanted to give a bad answer, but actually she then pushed me for a better answer and she challenged the one I gave. And that's when they go, oh, wow, okay, I see where this could go.
If you're ready to go into a bit more depth, including how to build your own brand voice GPT, then check out our new resource. It's called 5 Simple Ways to Get Started with AI in Social Care. And it's super practical, super straightforward. Find everything you need in there to start putting in some steps that will make a huge difference to your organization. Just check out the link in the description below. All right, back with the pod.
Because the thing about tech in general, but AI specifically, is that it's scary technology. And when you then turn that technology into voice, voice communication is about as old as human communication can be. It feels so familiar. And that's the mind-blowing part, is that you just go, oh, am I still speaking to a computer? Because I need to reframe my relationship dynamic with machines now. Because actually I can and I can say what I really think, and I don't have to pick my words carefully and actually have a really useful conversation.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff there, isn't there, around like the permissions. I know that the EU has brought in like directives around like you have to, which we're obviously outside of right now, but yeah, you have to be honest about this is a machine and this is AI and all that kind of stuff. How are you navigating that?
So we're just honest about it. When we send a text message to a candidate that's just applied for a job, and we're like, we'd like to book a screening call with you. We're like, I'm Lily, the AI assistant from this organization. And then during the call, when Lily introduces herself, she lets you know she's an AI. And I don't see any harm in doing that. It's just the truth, which is only a good thing. What it actually does, which is really interesting, is it stops the candidate from judging themselves before they speak so much, because they're not worried about what the person on the other end of the line thinks about them. So they know it's an interview, so they still want to answer the questions well, but they know they're not speaking to a person. So some of the rules change in how you talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I find really interesting, because there'll be more than one quote on this, but there's always you might know it better than me, but there's something about like between a conversation of two people, there are always 6 people present or something. It's one who you want to present yourself as, one who you're being perceived as, and one who you really are. And I think that changes when you're speaking to an AI, because you're just not worried about how you're perceived in the same way as if you're speaking to a human. And
Yeah.
that leads to more open interviews somehow.
Yeah. And what's the aim? What would you say is the absolute focus of that first? Because this is the first call that someone gets, right? This is the first interaction with that care provider. Uh, is it primarily about qualifying them on technical stuff, like you're saying, like, oh, they can drive or they have a right to work? Is it values based? What is it?
I really like values based. Now, so for instance, for our clients, they could choose whatever questions they want. I always lead them towards values, because my thing is a CV can't show character. And if they've already given you their CV, for instance, you should have an idea of what their skills are. There's also like a pre-screening flow where you could just say, like, yes or no, do that on Lily if they want to. But I think the conversation is about understanding the person. And that's at a level way deeper than I've got like SVQ level 3, for instance. So for me, the call is about giving the person a chance to, I'd say, shine, if that's what they can do in this call, is shine, but it's giving them a
Yeah.
chance to share themselves. Because I think a CV and a traditional application form is just doesn't show you character, and that's what you get when you're speaking to somebody over the phone.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And it just kind of like I was saying in the intro, I don't know, CV just isn't that helpful for particularly just a more junior care worker role. What is there?
Yeah.
What's the character like? Yeah. Okay. What happens when you have amazing candidates? Because obviously you're scoring them, and you can, I'm sure you assume you can then listen back to recordings and all
Yep.
that stuff. What happens when there's clearly a great candidate and they don't get picked up by the provider?
So that is, sorry, my laptop's pinging at me. That's the most interesting part about what we're thinking about now. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts about this. Well, so what we've discovered is that even when you get great candidates, like you said, they're not necessarily hired. And I think that candidate, one, they've clearly shown interest, and they've given you their time, and they're clearly good. There are jobs in care that need, and there are vacancies that need to be filled. So we think there has to be some value in the fact that this candidate is ready to go. They're good. They would do well wherever they go. So we want to find a place to go. And we think that there's a really interesting part of, for instance, one of the reasons why a lot of candidates get rejected is because they just don't live close enough to the care home, for instance. And so what we built in for our clients is a way that you can map out the commute, and a candidate will go, oh, actually, that's a 57-minute drive. I won't be doing that at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I'm going to deselect myself here. Or they'll go through with it and they get rejected for that reason. But what if you then knew that there was a 10-minute drive to another care home for them? I feel there's something, this is where I go back to candidate experience. I feel there's something in there with going, we know you're great and we know that you didn't get this job, but where else could you be placed? So that's something that we're thinking about a lot at the moment. I think it's a really exciting part of what we're up to. And it's one of those things that you stumble across through, one, like taking action and doing screening calls, but two, listening to customers or prospects and showing them something and they go, oh yeah, that's really cool, but I still have this problem. And then you're like, tell me more about that problem.
Yeah.
That's so what we do with those candidates that get rejected is an exciting place for us to be thinking.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting challenge, and there's all manner of automations and tech that could help you. But at the same time, I guess you as a founder or a co-founder, you're like getting Team Lily going, aren't you? That's all of your focus right now. So it's quite difficult because there's always other problems that you could be fixing, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. But we also can work at a pace that we can prove concepts really quickly and then build something super, like enterprise ready. But it blows my mind how quickly we can build concepts. So yesterday I took my kids to Legoland, so I wasn't at work. And this morning in the stand-up, the demo that I saw like blew my mind. I was just like, I know we've been having this conversation, but I didn't expect to see it on the screen.
So what happens when you take a day off? Exactly. They get so much done.
Exactly. So yeah, yes, we do need to focus on the right problems and we do need to know when to say no, but we just live in a different world where you can build at such scale. The things you say no to, I think, aren't what they used to be. A rough idea dealing with these candidates is actually, do we need to spend a couple of weeks building this out once we know it's strong? That's way quicker.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's extraordinary how fast you can build and iterate. All right, I'm interested in this question of bias, because obviously bias is a huge issue both in recruitment and in AI. It's such a hot topic. Like how much bias creeps in when you're reviewing CVs or listening to a candidate's voice from a provider's perspective?
Yeah, bias is a really good one. And we know that it's something that, one, it's important to be aware of, but two, a few months ago, maybe a month or two ago, it was a hot topic because there was a case of bias with a HR platform or a recruitment platform, an one. So what we do is we've looked into, okay, what are the main things that people have biases about? And they'll be like gender, name, ethnicity, etc. And I've spoken to recruiters who go, I just scanned through and they do literally, name is a conscious bias of theirs. And that's not great, but it's also, they're humans and they're using heuristics that they've come up with over their years in recruitment to go, oh, these people usually are quite good at that job, so I'll just throw those ones in the pile. So what we do, which is quite fun, is we just remove any of those things from any of our scoring. So it's almost like there is more than one Lily. So the Lily that you speak to, but then there is a whole other Lily who scores you, who actually doesn't have access to the information that you might find bias creeps into in other AIs because of its training data. So we just remove them. And then we test and retest scores. And then we find that we're consistently getting scores that are always really close, because a large language model will always give you slightly different outputs. Once you're really close, it becomes negligible. And you know that it's consistent in its scoring. That's how we've approached it, is what are the things that people are biased on and where could it creep in with AI, and then just remove that, which we don't factor that in when we're actually judging a candidate or creating a score on a candidate.
Aren't there like things that are going to be missed between what an AI can do and what a human can do in terms of like other values and soft skills? Are those being missed in favor of easier to judge metrics?
So yes, but it also works both ways. For instance, you might get a really empathic, intuitive human recruiter on a call who, even though a candidate doesn't answer well, they just know there's something about that person that means they'd be great.
Yeah.
And they can just hear it in their voice. Will AI reach that point? Yes, it will. Today, it's not there. But there is also the other side of that same empathic, intuitive human recruiter might not have eaten for 8 hours, might not have slept, might have just done 50 calls where only 20 people answered and they weren't good candidates. And then their level of empathy or intuition changes. We change from moment to moment as people. And it is, in some instances in life, is a superpower. In others, where you want something more uniform, it can be an obstacle. So it is interesting. There are things that humans have that AI doesn't, and there's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
I think
The obvious trade-off being the fact that your Team Lily is going to work 24 hours a day. It can do however many infinite calls at the same time, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So just the sheer scale. Do you find, do your clients tend to be big providers?
that's what we aim for, because the scale makes sense. It makes sense to scale with a big provider, but we try to not make anything techie, which then means if you wanted to just screen 100 candidates that you had sitting in your Indeed page, you could literally just screen them through Lily and get the reports through. You don't need to do a massive onboarding if you're like a tiny organization who's just got something it needs doing. Yeah, yes, we skew for bigger, but that's because it makes sense, as opposed to because it makes sense for us and where we focus our time and where we can learn the most.
Yeah.
But saying
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
like, I also learn a lot from being in the weeds with smaller clients as well.
Is it like in terms of your payment model, is it pay as you go? Like you don't need a big setup at the start, or is there, I guess you've got to integrate with the applicant tracking system and that sort of thing. So maybe there is a bit of setup cost. How does that work?
Yeah, so bigger providers usually already have an ATS. So
Yeah.
then there's the work that goes into that. But yeah, no, actually, I'm going to not answer your question properly because now I've already forgotten what I was answering.
Because what I'm interested in, I was thinking of a couple of small providers that I know. Like it might be like a home care provider. It's just one location, a family business, or it might be just one care home. Let's say a care home has like that scenario you're saying. They got just this backlog. Can we just quickly screen them? Can they just get that done fairly quick?
They could all their applicants contacted within minutes. It's as simple as what's their name, what's their number, what job did they apply for, and yeah, so yes, it is that easy to actually do. So we said we might do a test call if our mics can pick up the phone. It could very easily it'll take me 20 seconds to have Lily send you a text and invite you to book a screening call. Yeah, because as part of, like I said, we try to keep the feeling of big, powerful tech out of it. We try to make it feel as natural as possible and frictionless as possible. So it's just, when the reality is, I just got a load of people I need to screen. The answer should be yes.
Yeah. All right. I tell you, let's give it a go. Let's give it a go now. I'm going to try and apply for the job of healthcare assistant. So Lily is about to give me a call. I'm just getting some good information about the role first. I feel myself sweating, just waiting for the call. Just play it cool, Dave. Try and act natural, act normal.
Hello, this is Lily. I'm an interviewer from Forest Care, and I'm calling to discuss the healthcare assistant role you applied for. Just so you know, I'm an AI agent, so I might take a second to respond sometime. May I go ahead and start the interview?
Yeah, sure.
Great, let's begin. My first question for you is, tell me about a time when you helped someone who was upset, anxious, or distressed. How did you handle it?
Oh, well, I'm thinking about a time when when my colleague was upset. She was frustrated with a supplier that was kind of not really doing their job very well. And so I handled it just by, listening to her, sympathizing, and kind of, just making sure that she felt listened to and understood. That someone was listening to the struggle she was having.
That's a very thoughtful approach. Listening and sympathizing can be incredibly helpful. Could you tell me a little more about what you did specifically to make her feel listened to and understood? And what was the outcome of that situation?
Well, I was doing, like, I guess, active listening. So I was like repeating back to her the things that she was saying so that she could see that I was really, and checking that I understood it. So she could see I was really listening, really understanding. I was showing empathy in terms of like how that must have made her feel, things like, oh, that sounds really frustrating. I can see why you'd be, feeling upset about that. I didn't try to offer solutions particularly, but just more showing empathy and helping her to sort of figure out her next steps.
That's a very clear explanation of active listening and empathy. Thank you. It sounds like you handled that situation very well by focusing on her feelings and helping her process them. Now let's move on to the second question. Tell me about a time when you had to manage two things at once and both felt important. How did you decide what to do first?
Okay, well, I'm thinking specifically about a time where I had to get the kids to school, but at the same time, I had a work call. And so I kind of thought, well, I can't really make the kids late for school again because one of them was already down to have a detention if they were late again. So I put the work call back by half an hour and just explained and apologized. And yeah, that worked out fine.
The very clear example of balancing immediate needs. Sounds like a situation where you had to make a quick decision. Could you tell me a bit more about how you weighed the importance of both getting the children to school on time and taking the work?
Okay, so I'm not going to go through all, I think there's 5 questions altogether, or 4 or 5. As you can see, they're all value led. What I like about this is that it's really pushing me to give detail, not just settling for a kind of short answer or a surface answer, but it's really, I guess, what you're trying to do as an interview, isn't it? It's trying to get someone to give as much as they can, almost kind of helping the candidate really to not just to give the best account of themselves that they can. Okay, and I love how so, obviously at this stage, that particular brief from Forest Care, as they were called, they're really pushing on value-led questions. All right, we're going to leave it there. We had a small technical problem at this point where we lost the visuals. If you want to hear the rest of the interview, there's about another 10 minutes left. It's actually some really interesting stuff from Elan, particularly looking forward to how he thinks like the landscape's going to change over the coming years. You can listen to the rest of it on Spotify, so the full interview's on Spotify. But that's it for now. I'm David Mance, founder of Brand Care Marketing. Please do subscribe and check out other episodes and my AI tutorials that are also on this YouTube channel. And I hope you join me again next time for AI in Social Care. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember to pick up our free resource, 5 Simple Ways to Get Started with AI in Social Care. You'll find the link in the description below.